So as you're probably aware, ATS hacks come in various shapes and sizes. Level 1 is where you optimize your resume like a sane normal person for each job description that you're applying for. That's hardly even a hack, right? Step 2 is where you take the exact skills needed in the job description and paste them in your skills section on your resume. Now we're cooking a little bit. Step 3, and I think at least a few of you would have probably heard of this, is where you take the entire job description, reduce the font to the lowest size possible, make it white colored, and then leave it within your resume for the ATS system to pick up on. Now, I asked an ex-Google recruiter for her take on whether or not this works and whether you should do it. Her response surprised me, and I think it will surprise you as well, so I'll let you check that out. But we also discussed what it means to hack an ATS, how ATS works. And honestly, a lot of what she shared was very surprising to me and not something that I had considered. So without any further ado, let's jump in. And if you would like to check out the entire conversation that I had with her, here's the video for that, so please do check that out and remember to subscribe. Here we go.
So, what can you tell us about what goes into a good resume or a solid resume, one that gets shortlisted not just from ATS systems, but then also recruiters such as yourself? And actually, also on the topic of ATS systems, I think it's just viewed as such a black box almost. It sounds like nobody really knows how they work, what goes on. There's some chatter around how if you don't format it correctly, ATS systems will not even parse in your content. So, yeah, what can you tell us about what goes into a good resume?
Yeah. I mean, I think that applying in general, just the application process feels like a black hole.
That's true. Yeah.
So, and I think that's a really challenging part of being on the job search is just not getting any type of feedback, any type of, two-way communication or at least anything meaningful. And honestly, I don't think it's as related to the ATS as a lot of people. I think that's kind of an easy culprit to blame to kind of make sense of just why it's such a black hole. Because in all of my entire experience, everything was reviewed by people. It's very, very much manual. There are some ways to filter applications and things, which I can talk about that too. But very much there's people that are working on reviewing these applications to the highest extent that is possible. Obviously, it's impossible to review every single application that comes through, especially now. The volume, I think, is even higher than 10 years ago. But yes, when I was at Google, so I was on the resume review team. So it's exactly what it sounds. It's an entire team. We had about 10 people on my team, and then there were another 10 or so that were based out of California, and then 10 or so that were focused just on the university recruiting positions. Overall, about 30 people or so that were just assigned to reviewing candidates who applied to positions online. And our goal was to get online applicants hired. We wanted people who applied online. We wanted to increase the number of applicants that were getting hired. So we were reviewing, as thoroughly as we could and trying to not only see if they were a fit say yes or no if they were a fit for the position they applied to, but if we knew of another position we could share them out to, that was, highly encouraged and, what we were trying to do as well. So very much a high priority for all of the companies that I worked for was hiring online applications, because those are people that are seeking you out and applying and wanting to work for you. They're showing you that they're available, interested, ready right now. Timing is a big issue when it comes to recruiting, of finding the right timing for these candidates. So if you can find candidates that are coming to you, then you want to capitalize on those and hire them. So that's what my team was responsible for. And there was a lot that would go into the review process. So we would meet with the hiring managers and the recruiters that were working on those positions to get a good idea of what makes a good candidate for this position. So there's a lot that goes on beyond the job description, which is unfortunate for the candidates on the other end, because that's your only window or portal that you have into the hiring process is that job description. But there's so much beyond that. So sometimes that's where the black hole can feeling can come from, is you feel like you're a perfect fit for this position that you're applying to, but unfortunately there was something else kind of unspoken that they're looking for that has nothing to do with you as a candidate, or they're not saying you're not a fit for what's written there, but for whatever reason they're just looking for something specific, something that they're needing for their team or this position specifically. So we'd have to learn all of that.
I suspect a few of our listeners would likely have some of them being that the ATS system is probably not as widely used as one may have thought. Like there are actually human eyes reading your resume, and it's easy, as you said, to put the blame on the ATS system, but that's likely not what's happening. And why I like that is I think it gives more onus on the person to really do a good job with their resume and not just be like, oh, what's the point of my effort? Anyway, it's going to go through a bot.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I think that's a really good call out, in that it is in fact in our hands as appliers to, do a good job at the resume. The second you said was like these companies really want to maximize online hiring, which is also something that I've heard mixed thoughts or opinions around that. Oh, if I don't know somebody or if I don't have a referral, I have no chance of getting in, which it sounds like those probably help for sure, but they're not in any way a deal breaker, I think is what you were laying out. And the final one being that the job description is not, in fact, the tell all be all of applications. It's okay to, even if you have parallel experience, it's still fine to still apply. Maybe just test your luck, tailor your resume probably to the extent possible. So, first of all, I guess any call outs on those takeaways, or would do you think those stand out fairly well? Or okay,
I agree, definitely. I think that especially tailoring your resume, when you're building your resume, thinking about a human being reading it first and foremost, versus I've seen some students try to tailor their resume just for the ATS, and then it's like, well, what about a human reading it? And that's a little bit different kind of thought. And you can have both, and I will also, I kind of alluded to this in the beginning, but there are ways that recruiters use to pull resumes to the top. So they are, if there is a huge number of applications, then there's got to be some way to try to filter those out. So that's where the keywords and things are going to come into play. So the thought process of the ATS is kind of along the same lines of this keyword. Keyword searching type of thing. But it's still a human that's doing it, and there's so much complexity that goes into how we are putting together that search string, that it's really hard to try to kind of, game that system, or however you want to kind of say it.
Absolutely. So love all those call-outs. I feel like all of those are so actionable, so helpful for anybody that will be listening. My final question is around a pretty widely known hack actually around resume. I won't share who has, but I've heard a lot of different groups of people share that if you basically copy the job description word for word, make like the font size 0.5 or something, put it in white color, and then just leave it on your resume at some point, it's a way to hack the ATS. Did you ever see that? Like, does that even work? I have so many questions around that.
I would say absolutely do not do that.
Okay.
Whether I saw it, I don't know.
Okay.
Because I probably wouldn't. It's hidden. But
wouldn't the ATS see it though? Because the ATS is just parsing every word, or does it not see it? In fact, is that what you're saying?
So ATS does do parsing. It's not always perfect, and I'm not sure how it would parse that. Like,
interesting.
If it was at the end, I'm not sure what it would do with that information. It's mostly just parsing like job title, dates, that type of stuff. But I've heard of this before from some students, so I have put some thought into this. I hadn't heard of it before I started this role. I'd never heard of this when I was actually a recruiter, but when I heard about this, I kind of reflected on if I had ever come across this, and I was like, well, there were some times when I would search like keywords, and some resumes would come up, and I'm like, this keyword is not in this resume. Like, why is this resume coming up? There's something wrong with my searching. Like, this is not, I don't understand. So I'm like, wonder if maybe they had that keyword hidden in there somehow. But yeah, it didn't trick me. I didn't move forward with those resumes. And the other thing is it can actually cause those resumes to be marked as spam. So LinkedIn specifically calls this out, that if you have too many keywords, they'll flag your LinkedIn as being spam. So I'm sure that there's other ATSs that will do the same thing. They've kind of figured out stuff like this, and they'll mark you as spam. So you're potentially risking getting your resume thrown out altogether if you are doing some of those types of things.
Wow. Thank you so much for dispelling that myth, because I feel like that's unfortunately way too common is all I'll say on that subject.